Hey everybody, it's criminal defense attorney Andy Marcantel, and I got 6 more self-defense videos coming your way. Get ready for Quick Draw Law. For our first video, we're heading to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to see a 14-year-old hero neutralize a threat at his family's pizza store. Let's check it out. All right, so this person is posing as a customer. Here comes the 14-year-old in the back there. Cashier takes the payment, and it just became a robbery. Look at that. 14-year-old goes for the gun underneath the counter, shoots him. You can say that threat is neutralized at that point. And that's the end of the video. You're not going to believe this, but after that guy was shot, he actually fled the scene on foot. It looks like he was pretty much out for the count there, but police records show that the person then ran out of that building and ran down the street, and police actually said they followed a blood trail until they found him. He was a 33-year-old suspect who had just attempted to rob that pizza store. It was later revealed that that person had actually robbed a CVS pharmacy with an accomplice right before entering that pizza store. So, in terms of what happened here, looks pretty clear that he was trying to reach over the counter and rob the person who was acting as the cashier. The young boy then pulls out the firearm from under the counter. The boy was 14 years old. He knew that the family's firearm was there under the counter, and he had been trained to use it responsibly, which he definitely did here. So, kudos to him. This is definitely a heroic move. But this case illustrates a really important point here. It doesn't look really clear from the video that the robber is armed in any way, shape, or form. It looks like he's just reaching over and trying to grab the money from the cashier. And prosecutors have a whole lot of discretion in these types of incidents. The general self-defense rules here are that you may never use deadly physical force to defend mere property. A prosecutor could have looked at this case and decided, well, hold on, the guy wasn't armed. He was not using deadly physical force against the cashier. He was simply trying to take the property, and so therefore this person using a gun against the robber was disproportionate force. But there's some other rules at play here too. Certain jurisdictions have these things called crime prevention statutes. What those statutes say is if somebody is committing a very serious felony, you are justified in using deadly physical force to stop that commission of that felony in progress. And in this case, in Philadelphia, they do have such a statute. So the prosecutors took a look at this case. Luckily, they did the right thing. They declared, we are not bringing charges here, and they went ahead and closed down the investigation, and this kid's just a hero. He did the right thing. Now, I should say here too, it would be reasonable for this 14-year-old to believe that the person who was trying to rob the cashier here was armed and dangerous. Usually when people go and try to commit these types of robberies, they do have weapons on them, and even though you didn't see one here, what we go off when analyzing self-defense cases is what would a reasonable person in the position of the defender think? And so for all those reasons and more, a prosecutor took a look at this thing and said, no, we're not bringing charges. So good, I'm glad that's the right result. I could have seen in a less friendly jurisdiction, perhaps a prosecutor could have brought a charge here. It would have been an outrage, don't get me wrong, but they didn't, and that's a good thing. So kudos to this kid. For our next video, we're heading to Baltimore, Maryland, where a tragic misunderstanding led to a nonetheless justified shooting. Let's go check it out. Now, this is a Ring camera video, and you're going to see this man, Mr. Espinoza, knocking on the door, yelling to be let in. And this is a very condensed version of the entire video.
Gary! Gary!
And you see Mr. Espinoza shirtless and maybe a little discombobulated here, and he's yelling to be let in. So just to explain what's going on here, Mr. Espinoza is at a party at a nearby pool area, and he's heavily intoxicated. He drank at that pool party, and now he's confused. He went to a home that he thought belonged to his friend, and is ringing on the Ring video, knocking on the door, and at first, it's very casual. It's kind of friendly. He's just asking what he thinks is his friend to let him in the home. But as there's no response, you'll see that he becomes more and more hostile. Now at this point, he's been knocking
No.
for a while
Come up.
and yelling, "Come out," through the door. You'll see him leave, walk away for a few minutes, and then walk back. And every time he walks back, and he does it 3 or 4 times, he gets more and more intense each time. Now, the homeowner is Mr. Dorsey. Mr. Dorsey doesn't know this guy. And all he knows is there's somebody yelling, "Let me in," and getting more and more hostile each time. Here he comes back. And at this point, he probably just thinks that his friends are pranking him by not letting him in.
Hello, open up. Open up, bitch.
Get away from the door.
Okay.
Mr. Dorsey's yelling, "Get away from the door."
All the way to the driveway.
All right, go ahead, man.
Go to the driveway.
Tells
Okay.
him, "Go to the driveway. Get away from the door, go away, go to the driveway." He says okay and walks over. If he wasn't so intoxicated, he would probably realize that wasn't his friend's voice.
You. You.
As you see, it's getting more and more hostile and confrontational. And at this point, Mr. Dorsey has called 911. He's reporting, "There's a man outside who seems intoxicated. He's got no shirt on. He's banging on my door, yelling profanity." All right, he's coming back again. He is angry.
You. You.
Threats of violence,
Well, piece of me, bitch.
a
You.
lot of profanity, anger.
You lost some of this shit? Oh, yeah. Well, piece of this shit. Yeah, motherfucker.
Opens the
Get
door.
away. Time to get away.
One shot fired.
He put the door open. He put the door open.
Yeah, we got to detain you for now, all right?
And the police show up and detain the homeowner. This is such a tragic case. It's really clear what happened here. Mr. Espinoza was simply intoxicated and went to the wrong home. And he thought it was his buddies playing a prank on him when they didn't answer the door. But as tragic as it is, this was a 100% justified shooting. Mr. Espinoza was presenting a threat. He was forcing entry into the home, and any reasonable person inside of that home right there would have believed that this was an imminent break-in, imminent danger. And so when he jostled the door open and forced his way in, he was absolutely justified in shooting him at that moment. When you are entering someone's home unlawfully, most states will actually allow you to discharge a round at that point and shoot to kill, especially if it is accompanied by the types of threats of violence and anger that we heard in this case. So super tragic, but ultimately prosecutors took a look at this one. They made the right decision here. They said, while this is just a tragic series of events, we can't hold the homeowner criminally responsible for what happened here. And they even gave a little bit more information about the entry into the home. As it turned out, there was a defective deadbolt on that front door. And you saw in the video when he was shaking the door handle, it actually jostled open that deadbolt, which is what allowed him to go inside. If that deadbolt had held, then likely Mr. Espinoza either would have given up and walked away, or he would have gotten more angry and maybe even tried to kick down the door, in which case Mr. Dorsey also would have obviously been justified in shooting him. So just a series of really tragic misunderstandings here, all caused, frankly, by impairment on Mr. Espinoza's part. By all accounts, Mr. Espinoza was a good guy, family man, seemed like a well-respected guy in the community, just an absolute tragedy. But the homeowner absolutely should not be held criminally responsible, and ultimately was not in this case. So next, there's an interesting video floating around right now on social media from an incident that occurred at a snack bar in Brazil. I think it's worth taking a look at to talk about the legal ramifications. I'll be analyzing it as if this situation had happened in America and how American law applies to if a similar situation were to happen to you. All right, guy in the red's a customer. We got the 3 people behind the counter, and a couple walks in. Here they come, both wearing motorcycle helmets and a gun immediately drawn. Guy says, "Give me that backpack." The girl walks back there and says, "Where's the cash?" Guy takes the backpack from the patron, and the girl thief starts robbing the drawer while the guy's rifling through the backpack to see if he can find a valuable. One thing he didn't take, though, was the firearm. Bam! 2 rounds. And it looks like the bullet struck both of them. They're both down. The employees are scattering. They're running to the back. Girl gets up, clearly injured in the arm. Guy's on the ground. Girl grabs the backpack, maybe the cash, and ditches him. Good luck, hon. Hope you find your way out. All right, now that's true love right there. Okay, well, we have a Good Samaritan again. This case is cleaner than the previous Good Samaritan case that we took. Remember that video with the 14-year-old who shoots the bad guy and ultimately wasn't prosecuted? That was good, but I talk about there's some prosecutorial discretion there. If the prosecutor wanted to try to make the argument that the person wasn't posing an imminent deadly threat of physical force, they could have prosecuted that 14-year-old. This one's a lot cleaner under American law, and the reason is because as soon as the bad guy walked in, he immediately pointed the firearm and threatened everybody there with the firearm. That is immediately posing a risk of deadly physical force at any time because he has now threatened them with the gun and is in the process of committing an armed robbery. Any of these people could have shot him dead at any time here. Now, whether or not they could have shot the girl, it's a different analysis, but at the same time, she's an accomplice in this armed robbery, and most states basically treat you as if you are doing the armed robbery if you are an accomplice. There's even rules that say, hey, even if there's somebody out there outside in the getaway car and they never actually set foot into the store that's being robbed, well, sorry, if you're an accomplice involved in any way, you're going to be held legally liable for all of it. Now, even if you're an accomplice and you're not posing a threat of deadly physical force, if you're in the way of somebody who is, like this girl was, well, then they can justifiably shoot through you and shoot the person behind you. And once again, this is a situation where any reasonable person would have believed that this woman was probably equally armed and dangerous as the male accomplice. So she grabs the cash in the backpack, she leaves him behind, says good luck. So bottom line, this looks like another hero, and this is a good shoot. For our next video, we're heading over to the state of Virginia to see a shooting that occurs when a man is entering his home. Okay, man approaches the door here, starts unlocking the door, and all of a sudden, guy comes around the corner. All right, so that happens pretty quick, but once again, the guy is unlocking his door, hears a voice from around the corner, and you can see him turning around cautiously and starting to arm himself kind of in a discreet manner while the guy comes around the corner. Now, as soon as that guy comes around the corner, you can tell he's probably posing an imminent risk to the guy. He has his face concealed and he's clearly holding a firearm. And as soon as he starts lifting the firearm, the defender in this case draws the firearm and neutralizes the threat. Definitely posing an imminent risk of deadly physical harm here, and there's even more statutory law on this guy's side. There's case law directly on point that says if somebody is even threatening an imminent home invasion, that qualifies as a serious crime under their crime prevention statute there, that you can also justifiably use deadly physical force to prevent. So yeah, this looks like a really clear case to me of self-defense, looks like a good shoot to me, and the guy was clearly posing an imminent threat. It is clear that he was going for that gun with ill intentions. There's no argument that he just wanted to talk to him. And even if he just wanted to talk to him while taking his firearm out, we go off a reasonable person standard here. In other words, what would a reasonable person in this defender's position think? Any reasonable person would think that they're about to be either killed or have their home invaded. So once again, good shoot all the way around. Next, we're heading to Jacksonville, Florida for a dog shooting case. You're going to see the defender in this case defending her dog, not herself. So let's go check it out. All right, this gentleman here is walking a dog. I believe it's a pit bull mix from the research that I did. And here comes a small dog off leash running out of the garage, and the big dog immediately goes for it. The owner of the small dog comes running out in a panic. They're punching the big dog. The walker of the big dog is punching the big dog as well, struggling with it. She runs back inside. She's got a stick, and she is hitting the big dog with the stick, desperately trying to get it to release her small dog. Nothing is working. This has got to be an excruciating amount of time at this point for this owner. She runs back in a second time. Guy's punching the dog over and over again, can't get it to release the little dog. And she runs out. The video doesn't have audio, but she later told the police that she tells him at this point, step back, I've got to shoot your dog. And he steps back and she shoots the dog. One shot, dog releases her dog, big dog limps away and is later euthanized from that gunshot wound. The small dog actually lived despite being attacked for that long, though it did suffer very serious injuries. It took a long time to recover from it, but I understand that the dog did survive. So the question here is, was the woman legally justified in shooting the big dog that was attacking her small dog? Okay, there's a couple important things we need to analyze here. First of all, the law treats dogs as property in this respect. What do I mean in this respect? The subject of how the law treats animals is really interesting. I call it pseudo-human rights in a lot of instances. For example, it's a crime to be cruel to animals. You can't simply starve your animals or beat them or keep them in conditions that causes unneeded suffering. That's a crime, and in our society we've decided we want to criminalize that type of behavior. But when it comes to something like this, when it comes to protecting your dog against another dog, the law basically treats them as if they are mere property. It basically says, okay, well, your dog is property insofar as you're trying to keep it from being destroyed. So in other words, you can't use deadly physical force against a person who is trying to kill your dog because they aren't threatening a human, they're threatening a piece of property. It's kind of interesting how American law picks and chooses where to ascribe these pseudo-human rights to our pets. So this is one of those instances where it's a piece of property destroying another piece of property, and the question is, can you use deadly physical force in that instance to stop that threat? Now, because we treat animals as mere property in this type of a situation, you could imagine this as you've got a bicycle that you really like, and somebody's car is unmanned and is just kind of rolling in neutral towards your bicycle, and the question is, can I shoot the tires and try to pop the tires in order to change the trajectory of the car in order to keep it from running over my bicycle? That is essentially the analysis that the law applies. Now notice here, very important, if the dog is posing an imminent threat to you, that is a totally different analysis. But the woman never claimed at any point that she was in fear of the dog. She was simply trying to protect her dog. So what does the law allow here? Well, I'll tell you the punchline, which is that prosecutors took a close look at this case and considered charges, but ultimately declined charges. And this video also really helps to illustrate a topic we've been talking about in several of the videos today, which is prosecutorial discretion. Because there was no human being who actually claimed to be in imminent fear for their life in the face of what this dog was doing, a prosecutor, if they wanted to charge her, absolutely could have. They could have said, this woman used disproportionate force. She used deadly physical force to defend mere property. So a prosecutor could have exercised their discretion in order to prosecute this woman. And in fact, the person who was walking the big dog in this video is not the actual owner. I believe it was a dog sitter or somebody who was paid to walk the dog for the actual owner. But after this occurred, the actual owner, who was not present on scene, started a campaign to try to get the public to turn against this woman and posted her on social media. And the owner of the big dog even went over to her house and erected a small cross on her front lawn that basically was meant to be a memorial tribute to his dog being taken away in such an unjustified manner. The guy even spoke to the news. He said, this is an outrage. The woman could have grabbed her hose, so she absolutely didn't have a right to shoot, and I want prosecution for this. Now, she then went and told her story to the news, and the public understood where she was coming from. Most people now, I think, take her side, and so there was this big, overwhelming public support of her saying, I would have shot the big dog too if it was killing my little dog. Perhaps that had some influence on that prosecutor in exercising their discretion. They were worried that there would be some public backlash if they tried to prosecute this woman, but ultimately the prosecutor's office said, we are going to exercise our discretion not to charge this woman. Also, probably what that prosecutor was thinking about was, yeah, you know, this has got to be decided by a jury, and any reasonable person on that jury may just take a look at these facts and say, I'm not convicting this woman. This woman's cute little dog was attacked by this big pit bull mix, and so she was simply trying to act quickly after trying to exhaust every other thing that she could do, like punching him, hitting him with a stick, everything like that, and then she only did this when she absolutely had to. I think the average juror from this community is going to say, no conviction here. This was a reasonable use of force. Remember, at the end of the day, the question is, was the amount of force used reasonable? And the prosecutor, likely seeing no likelihood of conviction, declined charges. So, tragic situation. Even though the big dog was the one who attacked the little dog was off leash here. So always keep your pets on a leash, even if they're on your own property, if you have your front door open and they can run out into the street, which is exactly what happened here. The little dog saw the big dog come and ran up to it, maybe curious, maybe barking at it, and then the big dog just went for the throat. So tough case all around. I wish the big dog didn't have to die. It sucks to lose a pet in any event. But as far as the shooting goes, this woman, I think rightfully, was not prosecuted. And for our last self-defense video today, we're heading over to Kansas City. And I gotta say, this last video really fills my heart with Christmas cheer. We see a great community of people come together to throw bar stools at a bad guy. Let's check it out. Chaos in the bar as patrons throw bar stools at an aggressor. Oh, that was a good one. All working together, coming together with the holiday spirit. All right, I want to watch it again, guys, so I'm going to play it again while I explain what it is. I just like the video. So the bad guy, who they're all throwing chairs at, was kicked out of the bar earlier that week for sexually harassing several people at the bar, allegedly, and has now returned with a knife. He's threatened the employees at the bar, saying, I'm going to end you, perhaps because he was upset about being kicked out of the bar. And now, after threatening them with a knife, the community comes together and does the right thing. They're saying, not in my bar. Ho, ho, ho. There you go. Ooh, that was a good hit right there. Now, I'm glad to report that the bad guy with the knife was the only one arrested here. The cops took a look at exactly what the allegations were and found that there was credible evidence that he had actually threatened multiple people with a knife prior to the good-hearted patrons throwing their stools at him. So I love it when I see a community come together like this in the Christmas season to throw some stools at a bad guy and get him the hell out of the bar. This was a justifiable use of non-deadly physical force, and I'm glad that they did it. Fills my heart with joy. And that's the end of this episode of Quick Draw Law, folks. Go and check out attorneysonretainer.us to learn all about our self-defense program and what it can do for you. Also check out attorneysforfreedom.com to learn all about our law firm and how we defend people in the criminal justice system. If you like this video, as always, leave us a like below, leave us a comment, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, this has been criminal defense attorney Andy Marcantel signing out. Peace.